If I might just start, before I start, I'd just like to tell you that we don't stand on ceremony, so we'd like you to be as expressive as possible. If you have a thought, we'd like to hear it. Having said that, the MEWP industry, this is a Bauma year. I went to Bauma, met some of you there, and we saw several new technologies come out. We saw a technological leap, in fact, and the world is headed in a particular direction, where I think the Middle East is not completely in sync with the direction that the world is headed in. And I would just like to start with the manufacturers. Ian, could you tell us what you find are the discrepancies between the global market and the local Middle East market?
Yeah, well, there is a big drive towards electrification of the product, and you hear a lot of words like lithium power, and ways to innovate the product so that we go away from emissions and we go towards electric, hybrid products, but also these products that can be worked on a construction site, rough terrain, whether it's a scissor or it's a boom. The challenge for the Middle East is the opportunity for these sorts of products is driven by demand in more mature markets.
Right. Yeah.
So if you go into urban areas in Europe, you just can't even run a diesel machine quite often, whether it's noise pollution or it's emissions. So we're some way away from that. The availability of diesel here, the non-availability of charging points sometimes is a big challenge on construction sites. There will grow. It will come here eventually. It will just take time. It will be the same with the vehicles. The motor industry is always going to set the standard. So you see Teslas going around in some pockets here,
right, yes.
But when it will become mainstream will take a number of years, and the construction industry will follow. Now, we're going to continue to innovate because there's demand as a global product in other markets, and we'll be ready when it comes. And I'm sure there will be pockets. You know, you look at the expo site trying to drive safety and drive efficiency, but there's still not the tariffs and the regulations in place really to drive it forward that is needed. Yeah.
So you're saying that you will be ready when it comes, but that begs the question. I remember, Shabo, we had a meeting a few months ago, and I was talking to you about an article that I was writing for the magazine, and you said it's also probably a good idea for the manufacturers to try and push the sector in a particular direction so that it doesn't lag too much behind the rest of the world. So it's not just something that we can wait for and be ready for it when it comes. It's probably also something that we need to actively promote. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely right, Anabadi. I agree with Ian. You know, all the manufacturers, all the major manufacturers are looking at electric products as a main driver for innovation in the future. As he said, in 2025, many of the European cities, urban cities, will completely ban diesel machines in the vicinity of the cities. So, you know, if you look 7 or 8 years ago, there was not a single machine, maybe there was some few machines, but very few machines with secondary guarding in the market. Right. Yeah? And all of a sudden, in the Middle East, the wave came and we could not sell enough of secondary guarding equipment. So definitely, we are lagging, but it will come, and I think it's our responsibility as manufacturers to start promoting the change in order for us not to get, again, a surprise in the market where everybody wants a certain type of equipment in specific electric-driven or hybrid-driven machines, and then, you know, there will be a huge shortage in incoming equipment.
Your point is well taken that, yes, you need to push it, but just let's get the rental side of things into the conversation here. I'd say that it's very nice for a manufacturer to say that, let's push the electric product. But is there a demand in the market, and will a rental company really take it? I mean, Wayne, if you could tell us.
The demand for battery-powered equipment is becoming more prevalent, and I think one of the problems that we do have here is working hours. And the equipment that most people run here will last between 6 and 8 hours, and you know, these guys want to work between 16 and 20. Part of the problem that we find is keeping up with the demand for our engineering department. You know, we are getting calls to say that, you know, the machine's broken down where it's not broken down. So we put that down as a breakdown. The customer doesn't want to pay for it because he says it's broken down. He doesn't tell you he's previously been working it for 10 hours during the night,
Okay, right.
and it's flat in the morning because no one has charged it. So I think, you know, longevity of the battery is going to be the key here. The same problem that cars have at the moment, you know, they don't go far enough. The battery power needs to last.
So that's probably for the manufacturers to take a long, hard look at and come up with more innovative things. But yeah, go on.
But
Yeah,
again,
please.
you know, this is specific to this region. In Europe, North America, you work an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
Here, people are double shifting on every site. So and people think that these machines should last for two shifts.
I think you will be surprised how, because I talk to my colleagues in Europe, you'll be surprised how many companies in Europe face the same issue. Not just maybe not working double shifts, maybe not charging equipment, you know, having to go to sites where equipments have not been charged and just needing a plug. But there is also ways around it. We are developing, at Genie, we are looking at our range of equipment and developing products that are suitable to work 5, 6, 7 days on one tank of fuel. Recharging batteries without having the lag of what used to be a hybrid machine where the productivity of the machine goes down. You still have full productivity. You have a set of excellent batteries working on AC motors that can allow you to go on one tank for 7 or 8 days.
I think that's where there is a little drive towards lithium, because the great thing with lithium batteries is, you know, you can have it if they're the right type. A half-an-hour charge gives you 25% battery life immediately. A 3-hour charge to full, so the turnaround of the product will be faster, and it just still comes a bit of a premium price, and that's a challenge when you want to get higher rental rates, and maybe that's more to me. You know, if someone does using it shift, so 3 shifts in a row, let's say in a day, are they paying just 1 day rent for that?
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, nobody wants to pay 2.
I just wanted to say
Yes.
something that we are seeing. I just want back to the original point that was mentioned about electric products, and to support the point that Wayne was mentioning, is that we are seeing an uptake in the need for electric products. Part of it is a necessity, because as the construction sector is hobbling along, as we probably all know, there is the need for diversification and go after new customers and new segments. So you'll hear us talk more about the facility management companies, warehousing, and these products clearly in a mature market, or a much more mature market in the UAE as opposed to the other countries in the GCC, you'll find more and more demand for such products. So I think there is a drive towards electric products. We'll see it up, and I think that's the direction we're moving in the next few years.
But yeah, just further to that, you have extensive experience outside of the UAE. The UAE is usually the market that leads innovation in this region. How have you seen, for example, let's say Saudi Arabia, where you've worked extensively, how have you seen the adoption of new technologies there, or maybe the attitude towards new technology?
I think, as everybody probably knows, the key driver in the GCC is the Saudi economy, and what happens in Saudi Arabia kind of affects what happens in the GCC. And I think we are now in a phase where there is certainly a lack of investment. Clearly, the government is in a more tight situation right now, and has been for probably a couple of years, and probably will continue for the next few years as well. I think adoption of new technologies, as you rightfully said, is much faster and much more here in the UAE as opposed to Saudi Arabia. It was a kind of a surprise when I came here, because there seems to be a lot of competition, a lot of innovation, and then that kind of trickles into the other countries in the GCC.
We also talked about, we've touched upon technologies coming in the future. You've all said that regulations will come. But talking of the here and now, the regulations that we do have right now, Wayne, if I could ask you that what we see here is, especially in the UAE market, is that we sort of lack some regulations which allow, let's say, any outfit to come in with any level of safety or any level of competence and open shop over here. Shouldn't there be a minimum regulation laid down by the government or by the authorities for new entrants?
I think that, especially with the new DM document that's coming out, especially regarding MEWPs now, is stating that they have to have a minimum standard now. So the new document was released on the website last week, and they do now mention that they should be CE marked, which is a major step forward. So, people who are operating equipment that shouldn't be operated, hopefully Dubai municipality will have some regulation around that and some enforcement, because it's no good having regulation without enforcement.
If you don't enforce it,
And if these people are seeing that equipment is not there safe, and it's not just access equipment, it's a lot of working at height isn't done safely still here.
Yeah.
They are not using the best equipment for the job, but education is, and I think we all have a part to play in that, to educate people. It's not all about cost.
You touched upon safety, which is one of the prime areas of importance. If I could just ask you, from rapid access side, what do you see to be the uptake of safety? I mean, we are notorious, we hear it all the time. I hear it from contractors and everybody all the time that safety is not something at the top of people's minds over here, unlike several other markets around the world. So what needs to change so that safety is given the importance that it is, that it deserves? Because after all, if you have a safer work environment, your profits will also go up because you are avoiding contingencies. So what's the attitude there?
I think from what we are seeing right now there are more and more there's a more and more drive towards safety in the workplace, especially here in the UAE. In the UAE, the country that has an open economy, there's all kinds of international companies and they bring with them here their standards and the way they work in this market. We as a company, we used to be part of the Levandan group, and now we're part of the Luxem group, and each one of these companies prides itself on its safety and its procedures, its quality control, and that's something that has been transferred to our operations all over the GCC, but in particular in the UAE, where this is considered the hub that we experiment with all kinds of technologies and procedures and safety. So I think we will see more and more of it. I'm happy that the document came out that kind of enforces safety. As Wayne said, there needs to be enforcement for this to kind of separate the companies and the way they're offering. I see it moving forward quite positively, and we'll see what the next couple of years hold for us.
Sharbul, what would a company like Genie do in order to help this move towards enforcing, or let's say having more safer working at height?
I think, Araban, we are in the safety industry. Access is or manufacturing
safety.
MEWPs is safety and productivity. One of the main changes that we did a couple of years ago is we started having all our service and safety bulletins available for public online. So any safety officer can see a Genie machine on the site, take the serial number, go online, and check if the machine has done all its safety bulletins, all its service bulletins, and by that determine if the machine is good and safe to be used on site. That's not, of course, the only thing. Several other measures have been taken. Simplification of our manuals, service manuals, extension of some of our service intervals after rigorous testing. All this leads into a better and safer MEWP on site.
Right. Ian, we have an industry here, the oil and gas industry, which demands extreme heights for MEWPs. Do we have the kind of machines that are required there? Do we have the alternative fuel machines that are required for such an industry? When can we see the shift there to more eco-friendly?
I think the oil and gas industry has been a good catalyst for MEWPs in the region anyway. The demands they have on safety has always been probably the highest in the region, especially with Aramco and ADNOC and what they go through. It is more rigorous. I should come back to the first point a little bit, is that, as we're in this sort of testing time at the moment, rental rates are down and people are finding it hard. We can't forget safety. I think that's really important. The amount of time you spend on making sure that the machine is working properly, looked after properly, and the amount of time is spent on operator training is really, really vital. You want to get that machine out very fast. There's a lot of pressure on getting that machine out the yard and getting it on hire. So it is just important. So we're working closely with rental companies and trying to make it easier for servicing the machine and bring out technologies that makes it much easier for the operator to keep safe. Even like secondary guarding, as Charbel mentioned, both Genie and JLG and other manufacturers have got secondary guarding as a standard on the machine. And with oil and gas as well, it's not only the operator, they're also worried about the structure they're working on. Or same the aircraft industry with looking after an A380, they want to make sure it's not going to, the machine's not going to hit the product. So we have Skyline coming out, which is effectively like a bubble around the basket, which are proximity sensors, so when you're getting closer to it, it will actually stop the machine. Things like this just make it easier for the operator. But I think that training aspect is really, really important. Whether it's fixing the machine, using genuine parts, the age of your machine and your fleet, it is a big talking point at the moment in the industry.
Right. You also mentioned about the state of the market, and I'd just like to ask the two people from the rental sector here. We've talked with you before, we've spoken before, and we know that there is a feeling that we are sometimes in this market a little too lenient in the way we work, and what I'm alluding to. So Wayne, if you'd just like to come in there.
I think machine safety, the innovations that the manufacturers put in is great, unless you are great. But if you don't train the people how to use them correctly, they're pointless. The accidents that do happen, or the most of the accidents that I've seen here have mostly been put down to operator error. Mm-hmm. I sit on the Middle East Council for IPAF, and one of the studies that we done with some of the major companies here was the amount of breakdowns that are down to operator error. And I think the figure was around 20% of all recorded breakdowns was due.
High.
So, you have a cost to your company,
yeah,
and also a cost to the company that you're renting to.
Yes.
Unless we train those people properly, and I mean proper training,
mm-hmm,
not just a handover or familiarization, you've got to give them proper training. And I think we're now coming into a part within the UAE that they're accepting through government bodies that proper training is going to make these machines safer.
So speaking of training, proper training, what's the next frontier of training? At Rapid Access, I think last year you brought in the VR simulator.
Yes.
If you could just tell us a bit about that.
Yes. Well, as part of, can I just go back to the point about training?
Yeah, sure.
I agree with Wayne that we will see more and more drive towards operator training. IPAF is probably now becoming more and more required, and we kind of have a dedicated team that pursues this kind of training, as well as other trainings in the market. And there is a huge demand, especially with established companies or companies in certain sectors. We see it a lot in aviation, we see it a lot in oil and gas, and I think that's a trend that is going to move forward much more in the next few years. As part of innovation, as a part of our drive to improve training and stuff, we have a VR simulator I haven't had a chance to use it yet. Probably we're scheduled to do it sometime next week. But I think it's another way of us to train people on the use of machines in a safe and controlled environment, and that's key as we move forward in these kind of initiatives.
Well, I've used it. Joe was kind enough to give us a demonstration, and it really is path-breaking technology. And it's fun to use. It teaches you and it entertains you at the same time, is what I felt. somebody who doesn't need training in this, but still, it was loads of fun. But just to conclude, gentlemen, if I could ask each one of you where you see the industry in the next 10 years, from a rental point of view and from a manufacturer's point of view. Shabul, perhaps you could start?
I think we are shifting gears very quickly globally. First, I would like, the new ANSI regulations is coming in, which is basically getting closer more towards the CE with overload sensors and some other things. On the engine side, we see the tier 5 engines, so there is a huge jump on the engine regulations, which sooner or later will come. We might lag 5, 6, 7 years, but it is going to come.
Sure.
If you take a look at a market like China, they are going from tier 3 all the way to tier 5.
Yes.
So it's not strange to happen in markets for countries to go very quickly into such things. We will continue to innovate, what we call purposeful innovations. We are not a company, Genie is not a company where we innovate just for the sake of innovation. We will continue to work on green. We will continue to work on extra capacity to help our customers be more productive on their job sites. And we will continue to listen and see how we can bring more purposeful innovations into these markets. With the Middle East, I think all what we see on the global economy is going to come sooner or later. 5, 6, 7 years, I think what we see even in the UAE or in Saudi is things are changing very quickly. It could change from 1 month to another, from one day to another. So how fast it will change, I can't say, but it could change very quickly.
Wayne, is the rental sector similarly changing?
Yes, definitely. There's more lease machines coming in now with the Spider equipment, especially on the low weight stuff. A lot more emphasis now on low level working. Everybody thinks of working at height as being at great heights, but a lot of accidents also happen at low level. So a lot of people are putting more emphasis on how do we look after our low level working at height. I think there's some great products out there that are also giving us a return as well. And I think, as these guys have stated previously, battery is going to be the future.
What about the market?
Whether that will come in 10 years, I'm not sure.
Okay. But what about the market itself as a rental company? What can you say that, machines aside, a little bit about the attitude of the market? How do you get that changing?
I think there's a lot of competition out there at the moment. I think we have driven rates too low. When you talk about investment, these guys are going to get no investment if there's no return on that investment. I don't think we've bottomed out on rates yet, personally. People seem to be not stealing work, but I look at it, there's supposed to be some honour amongst thieves, and at the moment there's no honour amongst thieves in our industry. It's dog eat dog, and all we're doing is ruining a great safety industry, because people will have to start cutting costs somewhere. And on the back of payment issues, well.
Would you agree?
I agree. I think the next couple of years are gonna definitely be challenging. I think it's still driven by a weakness in the Saudi market, and that kind of affects the entire GCC market. I think back to the point about honor among thieves, I think I would hope that rates have bottomed out and we see we kind of see a stabilization of rates. And for the next couple of years, I think the norm for a company like us is going to be fleet optimization, cost control, efficiencies, best practices. As part of a major conglomerate, I think having this expertise in-house will help us move forward. I was thinking this morning that I only get 2 types of emails in a typical day. There are emails about engineering and efficiency and emails about collections. So that's pretty much the whole thing that happens every day on a daily basis in our life. And I think that's the drive moving forward. If collection is the major issue, money, there's scarcity of money and funds in the market right now. And clearly what companies like us will have to see is drive towards efficiency, cost control, newer products that offer these kind of alternatives moving forward. So I think that's what's going to happen for the next 2 years until something happens.
Ian, your summation, and then we'll open up the floor.
Yeah, I think for JLG, it goes back to those sort of efficiencies and how to get the most out of the product. So it's going to be a challenge next couple of years, and there will be a lot of change in the industry, I believe, in the UAE and in Saudi and in the greater region. There are some great projects out there, no doubt, and it's good to get some age restrictions on product and more safety features and more safety demand. But from JLG, it's just about will we go much higher than where we're at the moment? Probably not. But it's going to be about how do we support the rental company to get the most out of the product, whether that's through telemetry, or whether that's through attachments, or whether that's through the age of the machine and managing to keep it going and supporting that product, supporting the rental companies, and also at the end of the life. How do we support the rental companies at the end of the life, or when they perceive they want to trade in the machines or find new markets for it? All of these questions are going to become more and more prevalent, so we have to be ready. We, as industry leaders, and with Genie, of course, is that we've got to set the standard what we want to get out, and we want to make sure that the product is there. It's safe, number one, but it's also got the best TCO and a total cost of ownership. How do we do that, and how do we work with rental companies and understand the challenges they've got, and how do we make sure the factories in the US or China or wherever they are put that into place for this market, because we can also over-innovate. And we can over-strap on things to the product that is also not maybe helpful in such a market. Or if you go to India, or you go to some of these other places where they don't want all the bells and whistles. So we have to make that balance to support our customers here.
I just want to add another point. Is over the next few years, you'll see a much closer relationship between rental companies and manufacturers, because as Ian said, we need to open up new markets, and the reach in new countries in India and Vietnam and in Africa. That's something that the manufacturers need to help rental companies move forward, so that cycle of continuous and new markets and new cycle and new products come in and out of these car markets. So we will see a lot of this happening over the next 2 years.